No, you're not listening to me, Hawkins. There's no picture. What? Really? What am I wearing then? Yeah, but that's an easy one, innit? I'm always wearing that. How many fingers am I holding up? Wrong. 3. Oh, for 2 fingers and a thumb. Well, according to my detective sergeant, you can see me, so hello. My name is Detective Inspector George Butler of Scotland Yard. Probably you've already heard of me? Butler of the Yard? Well, I used to be quite famous, back in the day. Butler always gets his man, they said. Except, of course, there was this one time when... Well, let's just say that the case remains open and I used to be Detective Chief Inspector Butler. But that case has always bugged me, and then my detective sergeant came up with what I thought was quite a brilliant idea. The plan was to sort of recreate the case. And we hired in a company of professional actors who were going to play all the parts of the suspects and the witnesses that I interviewed in my original investigation. We were going to perform this in front of 40 or so members of the Royal Itching Criminology Society. I had a little clue book thing printed up and we booked the Royal Itching Village Hall and all was set to go. And then, of course, London gets plunged into this lockdown thing and, where the actors can't make it and the criminologists can't make it, and well, my governor says I'm non-essential and that perhaps I should consider working from home. Me, a homicide detective, working from home. Anyhow, my DS calls up. I've had an idea, he says. Why don't you film the recreation, he says. Well, that's a stupid idea, I said. All right, I'm fine to introduce it and to run you through the events and everything, but what about all the suspects and the witnesses? Who's going to play all those parts if we haven't got the actors to do it, I said. Well, it was the next morning that this parcel arrives on my doorstep. It's a box full of wigs and hats, false moustaches, spectacles, bits of costume. You could play the part yourself, sir, he says. Well, I'm not convinced, but the fact is this case has got to me, and I can't help thinking that there must be just something, just one little thing that I must have missed. And he's right in a way, the principle still remains. You may not be one of the finest criminologists in all the land, and my acting ability, heaven knows, leaves a lot to be desired, but by recreating the case, my hope is that we can, together, solve it. You may spot that one vital thing that I must have missed. Well, these are difficult times, so I hope that you'll forgive a certain amount of amateurness, but please help me solve the case. The details of how to get hold of everything you need will appear somehow, on the screen. On the 5th of April last year at about 8:30 in the evening, my telephone rang. A bishop had been murdered in the study of the vicarage in the village of Hopton St Mary. I left London immediately and was at the scene of the crime in less than 2 hours, where I assumed immediate command of the investigation. Now let me try to paint a picture of the scene to you. It was a fair-sized study. There was a large bay window area with curtains. Oh, and the curtains were closed. It was quite a dark room, I suppose. There's lots of oak panelling, bookcases, that sort of thing. Now, there was a large desk in the middle of the room, and in the far corner there was a sort of sideboard thing. Now, this sideboard had been used as a cocktail cabinet, and it had contained glasses, along with bottles of port, whiskey, sherry, that sort of thing. Now, I say had, because all of this glass now lay smashed across the floor, and lying next to it was this heavy metal garden shovel. Lying across the desk was the unfortunate bishop. He'd been shot straight through the cassocks, and beneath his cassock he wore a check shirt and a pair of blue jeans, in the pocket of which we discovered a printed poem, and handwritten on the back of the poem were the words, "Delivered by hand." Now, there were a couple of police officers, local force, at the scene of the crime, and we chatted about the case. As luck would have it, one of my detective sergeants had recently completed a shorthand writing course, and she managed to jot down that conversation. In fact, she managed to record all of my interviews, which is why I have the transcripts. Now, this is where my acting ability is going to be put to the test, because aside from playing myself in this recreation, I will also be playing the parts of the two local police officers, so please forgive the rather cheap-looking hats. Evening, lads. I'm Detective Chief Inspector Butler. You've probably heard of me. Butler of the Yard? Nope, I don't think so. But what? Well, anyway, I'm in charge. So, anyone got any ideas as to what happened here? Could be a bungled burglary, sir. The killer breaks in, but the bishop surprises him. So, he smashes up the drinks cabinet and shoots him. Yep. Any other theories? I agree with him, sir. Right. So, why does he smash up the cocktail cabinet then? He could have been anti-alcohol, sir. Temperance society. My uncle was like that. It's not very temperate to carry a gun, though, is it? Unless the shovel is a backup. If the gun doesn't work, he could always hit him with the shovel. What was the bishop doing here, anyway? He doesn't live here, does he? Maybe he was visiting the vicar. An argument breaks out, so the vicar shoots the bishop. Yeah, I'm going to have my work cut out here. Do either of you know the vicar? Oh, no, sir, no. No, we got no force in the village, see, sir. We're city folk, really. Serumsbury? Yeah, this village is on the very edge of our patch. Yeah, I've not been here before. It's quite nice, though, isn't it? Pretty little place. Oh, yes, I'm sure it's very nice. It's terrible, though, really, isn't it? This sort of thing always affects house prices, doesn't it, sir? Yes. I think we should concentrate on the case in hand, though. No, Hawkins. No, I think it went really well. I don't know why we needed those actors. Oh, look, I better go. Thank you. That conversation took place at about 11 o'clock on the evening of the murder, and about half an hour or so later, the vicar returned home. Now, the vicar of Hopton St Mary is the Reverend Davinia Collar, and she was shocked and surprised, as you can imagine, to find the police crawling all over her house. And I have to admit, I'm a tad nervous myself about taking on the role of a female vicar. Reverend Collar had been out at a hen party that evening. Now, a murder scene can be an upsetting place for anyone, let alone someone who actually knew the victim, both as a friend and a colleague. However, this was where the case took a rather sinister turn for the worse. Because while she immediately recognised the victim, he wasn't, she told us, her bishop. Yes, he was dressed as a bishop, but, in fact, he was her gardener, Mr. Frank Peyton. Now, obviously my first question was, well, what was the gardener doing in the vicarage dressed as a bishop? Unfortunately, we never got so far as to answer that question, but over the next few days and weeks, we discovered quite a few people who'd want to see Frank Peyton dead. And I've drawn up a little clue book thing containing all the names and the details of the people that I interviewed. Now, all of this paperwork is available for your perusal for, unfortunately, a very small fee. Now, I apologise for that, but it is only a few quid, and I still have to pay for the company of actors and the village hall hire. Not to mention the fact that I've taken a bit of a pay cut recently. Ah, here come the details. Now, it was far too late to begin the investigation, so I checked into the Frisky Ram Inn in the village and got a good night's sleep before conducting my first interview early the next morning. Now, that first interview was with Mrs. Parker and Mr. Walker. Now, if you want to continue the investigation, and I really hope that you do, you can see my reenactment of that interview in the next video. Next time. In the next episode, D.I. Butler reenacts his interviews with eyewitnesses Mrs. Parker and Mr. Walker and prime suspect Councillor Andrew Longbottom. Don't miss the next Lockdown Murder Mystery.